those needs that we just listed for the entire global population? Yes, we can. And I'm going to show you how. So what we're going to do what's called a Gedanken experiment, or a thought experiment. And we're going to set up some premises on this, and I'll explain those. First is that we are living in a resource-based economy. What does that mean? A resource-based economy is independent of all money. There is no more monetary system. You don't work for cash to pay for stuff to live. The way the system is set up is that the technology that we have invented produces enough, more than enough, a surplus in some extent, because you have to account for percentage overlap, of every need that you need. And so given that, let me ask this question. If you have an abundance of food, does it have an intrinsic value? Yes. Does it have a market value? No. Because it's an abundance. The same like you can't charge for air, because air is in abundance. If you had any product, service, or commodity available in abundance that you could readily go get anytime you want, it wouldn't have a market value. So by its very nature, abundance cancels the need for a system of exchange because there's no longer anything to exchange. There are no longer financial risks or concerns to stop or restrict the adequate use of technology. I don't know how many times I hear in the Space Shuttle program that we have budget issues. Even though we do amazing work, we deal with a space station up in space that does research on plants and biology and tries to figure out the human condition in a unique environment. It can grow crystals that can help with making better materials to be used on Earth. There are many experiments going on in space, but there's always a budget problem. Even though it's proved to be one of the most important endeavors that mankind has ever embarked upon, is space exploration, because of the technologies it has delivered. If it wasn't for space, you wouldn't have the cell phones, because you wouldn't have satellite systems that relay the communication around the planet. The majority of human labor is phasing out as more robust automated systems are put into place, and people who wish to work in any field that can be automated are still more than welcome to do so. In other words, if you had a fully automated facility for a particular service, but somebody really still likes doing that, do it. That's fine. Whatever makes them happy. So let's look at abundant solution sets for biological needs. We'll go down this first.
Excuse me?
Yes.
I don't understand the word abundance. It sounds like, is there any German-speaking person?
Ich.
Hm?
Ich.
Ja.
Das heißt Überfluss.
Überfluss.
Das heißt, es sind Überflüsse vorhanden, deswegen hat es keinen Marktwert mehr.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
I have to speak German, English, French.
Okay, fantastic. I need to learn.
Simultaneous translation. Because then I have difficulties listening and talking.
I understand. All right, so let's look at air. Air I kind of already touched on, right? Air is a naturally occurring thing. It's in abundance. It's out there. The only thing that would really mess up our air supply is completely destroying every amount of plant life on the planet that reverses
So what about clean air?
Clean air matters, yes. I mean, you can't live in dirty air, agreed. Again, that goes back to the plants, which are filtering mechanisms. Food. Let's give an example of an abundant solution set for food. A hydroponic vertical farm that takes up 1 acre of footprint in the ground. It has the equivalency of 400 acres of flat land. You can feed about 200,000 people, if not more. The technology is called the Omega Garden System.
Do you want to say things, or do you want to say things at the end?
We need questions and whatnot?
Yes, you
Um,
want to do it at the end?
Let me, sure, if you want to do that, absolutely. So consideration. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, 1 acre of land can grow 20,000 pounds of potatoes. Potatoes are typically sold in 5-pound bags for a family. So by those numbers, 1 acre supplies potatoes for 4,000 families. Therefore, just one vertical farm building with a 400-acre equivalency would then supply potatoes for 1.6 million families. The average family size in America is 3 people, meaning 4.8 million people will be fed by this one potato building. All right? That's Houston, Texas, where I'm from, basically. That's about the geographic population number that we're talking about here.
So what is the nutrient level compared to the income?
The nutrient levels will be provided by the tapia fish that would be in the system that would provide the nutrients that would be filtered up through the pumps that would come down and hydroponically cover the plants that are involved.
Like they do already for tomatoes in the greenhouse.
Right. But this would just be an automated system of the robotics. The robots actually take care of the maintenance and the facilitation of the facility. The only time human labor is required is to build the initial facility and then monitor after that. And the computers actually can call you, much like luxury cars these days, can let you know when they're going to break down or when they need an oil change. They actually can page you or email you. Your car will do it. This building could be set up to do the exact same thing. So the technicians that would be interested in this kind of work and like doing this would be on call like doctors are. And so they would get paged if the building knows that it's coming up to a problem. Yeah, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, you also get like year-round crops. There isn't the problem of having to wait for weather conditions because it's by the temperatures and light is controlled by computers.
Right, it's a climate control facility. Yes. In fact, you don't need sunlight at all. The way the Omega Garden system works, it actually runs on an ultraviolet LED light that goes down the center of the cylinder that grows the plants. So every plant gets the exact same luminosity radiation of light. So they all grow to the same equivalency factor.
But what about taste? Would be uniform all over the world?
It'll be
If you use them with the same nutrition and the substrate, same amount of artificial light, I prefer real food.
it is real food.
Sorry, but.
It is real food. How is it not real food? You can tweak the nutrient levels per area if you want to mess with the flavor levels, that's fine. If adding a little bit more nitrogen to the air or changing the material composition or adding a mineral to it will adjust the flavor, then that's fine.
That's not impossible.
So then you just tweak the facility to fit different taste factors. So instead of having all the spinach around the world taste the same, America does this flavor and Europe can do this flavor and you just put it around.
Are there special varieties that grow in pumpkin like this?
Right now there's a
Has it
select.
actually been done this?
Yes, yeah. The Omega Garden facility is a real business that exists in Canada, in Vancouver, is where it's based out of. And so the system really does exist. He's grown fruits and vegetables with it already. There is a select number of items that can be hydroponically grown, but research is being done to have more and more items grown in that particular fashion because it basically saves the soil. You don't need it. And it uses 1% of the water that would normally be necessary using traditional farming methods because of the technological advancement of the system. And I do have a handout that I will give all of you later, or it's also on the USB drive, that they handed out. Okay, well I do have paper versions, and I have links to all of the places that I'm talking about. So you can actually go and research it and read more about it than what I can give an hour. You had a...
No, I was just saying that it started in Japan actually because they were using bank vaults and to provide for the companies and that's where vertical farming started, as far as I know. And so they use like unused spaces to grow their own vegetables for their catering needs.
Right. So an additional part to food is free-range livestock farming using the land freed up after a significant amount of commercial real estate is returned to nature. I want you to think about how many malls, banks, and other large-scale facilities suck up real estate. If you didn't have a monetary system, you wouldn't necessarily have to have those systems in place. You would have distribution centers. You would still have facilities to either go and get the products that you would want to have, or they can even be delivered to you through automated GPS-controlled transportation, which does exist. And I'll get to the transportation in a moment. But the point is that if you could return a lot of that land back to nature, you no longer have to put cows in little stocks this big. You can let them go back to nature and free-range farm. It can still be monitored and controlled to a point by technology with swinging gates and rotate the farm so they eat the grass here, and then you open the gate and they move on to the next set and they can get into a habit. It's a much healthier lifestyle for the animals. They're going to have a much better life through the course of their lifespan. And the nutritional content of the meat, I am a meatitarian. I know a lot of people here at this conference are vegetarians, but I am not. Now, I will say this. If we can ever synthesize meat to where it looks like meat, tastes like meat, has the nutritional content of meat, but we don't have to kill animals to get it, I'm all for it. Go ahead. I'll eat that instead. That's fine. We'll save all the animals. But until then, I like my steak. So this mixed with advanced technological systems for monitoring and shepherding as needed, and extensive fish farming as opposed to intensive fish farming. There is a link I have provided that goes into a discussion. It was actually a TED conference discussion about extensive versus intensive fish farming, and how a gentleman created a fish farm that is symbiotic with nature and is significantly more robust than the current fish farming techniques that they have employed that are more industrialized. So technology doesn't necessarily mean everything's metal and boxes and things like that. It also means how can we use nature as efficiently as possible and still get the same results. Technology doesn't necessarily mean plugging everything in. Water, desalination plants, local rain collector facilities, centrifugal centers, things of that nature all exist. Poor nations can't afford them, but again, if we get off this monetary trip and realize that we have the natural resources to make these facilities, we have a way to distribute the water from them to the regions, there's no reason whatsoever why we shouldn't implement them. An example would be NASA 2008, a portable nanomesh creates safer drinking water. I have a link to that in the handout, so you guys can research that and see what NASA developed that will help.
So with desalinization, you could create safe water?
Out of the ocean. You would suck the,
Yeah.
suck the water right out of the ocean. It would be a coastal facility, and yeah, and you would bring it right out and clean it up.
Did you see the TED thing what Bill Gates done that water is the biggest cause of conflict in the next century?
Yeah, the shortage of water
Yeah.
will be kind of a World War III thing if it gets out of control. I've heard that. Let's try and stop that before it happens.
There's also a bottle for life that has a nanotechnology filter, and you can put filthy water in it, shake it, goes through the filter, and you can drink it straight away. So people in drought situations or
Right.
earthquakes, we got those bottles to them. They can just drink the water there, they can shake it, and they can drink it.
Mhm.
They don't have to go to refugee camps.
I forgot about that. That's another good technology. Basically, instant clean water. So the technology we have is amazing, but most people
Well,
just
that's
don't
for
know
sale
about it.
already?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, bottle for life is good.
Because I cross sometimes oceans,
Yeah.
as a last reserve of water, it would be good to have that.
It's
Mhm.
an English guy.
Sleep. This comes more easily when the stress and labor requirements are such that adequate sleep is easy to come by. I mean, a lot of people are working multiple jobs, or having to deal with financial issues that just puts them mentally over the bend. And sleep, we might sleep, but I don't think a lot of us have slept in a really long time. A true, comfortable, deep sleep. Some might, maybe the billionaires, but I have to say a lot of percentage of the world isn't sleeping very well. So if we can cover these biological needs, that will help alleviate a lot of those stresses and allow them to have a good night's sleep. Medical care. Medical advances are obvious in the 21st century and could even be more robust if done for human advancement instead of for profit, especially in America. The profit-based motives for keeping people healthy is kind of counterintuitive, don't you think? They get paid when you're sick. It should be the flip. if they're going to do it monetarily, they should only get paid when you're healthy. And when you get sick, they have to fix it on their dime. But it doesn't quite work that way.